Hey everyone, Ariel Adams here with aBlogtoWatch. Please subscribe to our videos on YouTube and like this video if you find it useful. This is a review of a very cool watch. This is the Urwerk UR-210 RG. RG stands for red gold. This watch has come in several different varieties, and this is probably one of my favorite Urwerk watches out there. Look at that interesting case architecture. I love this. I don't even know how to call this shape. It looks like a mask to me. The UR-210 is not by any means the least expensive watch Urwerk makes, not the most expensive watch. I would call it sort of a mid-range piece that has a lot of interesting personality about it. I've written extensively about this watch, and there's simply too much to say in a review, so what I will do is explain for the most part what it is. Now, Urwerk has, for the longest time, sort of popularized what they call the satellite time indication system. Urwerk did not invent the satellite time indication system, but they have definitely popularized it. And it's expressed slightly differently on various different models, but the idea on most of them is essentially the same. As you see here, there are three arms to this planetary system that moves around, and on each of these three arms is kind of a cube. And the cube turns and has four numbers on it. So between the three arms and the four cubes, you have the hour markers. And how it works is this hour marker drags along this minute track. The crown's up here, so I'll show you sort of what happens when you adjust it here. So I'm just going the wrong way. That's good that you can move in both directions. And it's retrograde. Well, not really. It just means that the other, well, yeah, it is retrograde. Sorry, different ones of these are not retrograde. This one is retrograde. So you can see how the hand part is retrograde, right? So it's moving almost to the end of the 11 o'clock hour, minute number 60, boom. So then you have 12 o'clock, and as this part here moves, at this point, that number turns around. So the time is indicated as such. Very complicated, a lot of parts, but surprisingly legible. And the reason it's legible is that, in a sense, you read it, I'll call it quasi-digitally, because you have the ease of seeing the hour numeral digitally, so 1, and then you just follow it along the track. So here it would be about 41. So it'd be 141, and in some instances, that's actually easier to read, in my experience, than two hands. And that makes this really cool, because I do like innovative ways of telling the time, but I'm not particularly sympathetic to situations when you really aren't able to see the time, and it's just different and weird for the sake of being different and weird. Here I find that you have, at the very least, as much ease of reading the time as you would have on a standard two-hand watch. There's two other complications here, but there's actually more than two. Right here is, I'll call it the activity indicator. I forget the specific name. It's been, I think it was in 2012 or somewhere around then when the UR-210 first came out, and I spent, again, more time explaining what this is. There's a kind of funny name that Urwerk has for it. And then over here is the power reserve indicator. Now, how are these things a little bit different? Well, the power reserve indicator, there's about 39 hours of power reserve in the movement. It's pretty clear what that is. This one tells you essentially whether or not your wearing of the watch, because this is an automatic, is sufficient to keep it wound. So right now the hand is in the green zone, which means whatever I've been doing is good. Whether I've been winding it manually or I've been holding it and wearing it and letting the oscillating weight move around, something's good. The black region is sort of in the middle, and the red is like if I've been sitting at a desk all day and I haven't moved my hand. It's interesting. Again, it's all mechanical, so I wouldn't call it as smart as it could be, but it's fun, and it's a new and interesting way of interacting with your watch, which I find very, very cool. Now let's flip the watch over. Again, a very nice view here as well. Little window of some gears they call the turbine, and it may not be too easy to see in the video here, but you can see those pieces moving there, and that's moving with the automatic rotor. So the automatic rotor in this watch is hidden. It would probably be in this vicinity. It'd be what you call a micro rotor, so it's not full-sized. But you know it's in there because when you move this, the turbine moves, and that's quite cool. Now this is a selector that you have to move with your thumb. You push it, and it's or whatever your finger, and you can turn this little selector. And there's three different positions here. And as you can look here, it says full, reduced, and stop. And what I find really funny about this is there's no real indication of what any of that even means. Like, what is full? What's reduced? What are you stopping? Well, that's actually the automatic rotor. And you have to ask, well, why would you want to stop the automatic rotor? Well, for the most part, you really don't. And you can see here there's a little red indicator which shows up when it's stopped. Now, when it's stopped, what that means is the automatic rotor doesn't move. And if the automatic rotor doesn't move, that means that when you're wearing it, the automatic winding function is, of course, turned off. You can still manually wind the watch, of course, but you cannot automatically wind the watch. Why would you want to do that? Well, there are a very limited set of circumstances, but the notion is that if you anticipate that your watch is going to experience shock, you would turn off the automatic winding and secure the rotor so that it doesn't get hurt. There are, like I said, very few instances where this would make sense because the idea is you have to anticipate it. Meaning if you just drop your watch, this would have to always be on and essentially have a manually wound watch when you thought you had an automatic. So it doesn't really prevent accidents. It prevents things when you knowingly are aware that there's going to be shock. So I think a very good example is if you are wearing the watch while playing golf. Why you would be doing that, I don't know. But the idea is if you're wearing it and you strike a golf ball with a club, there's a vibration that shoots through your arm, which could theoretically damage the movement. And if you put it into stop, you would be protecting it. Then you have reduced, which is somewhere in between. Again, I'm not an expert and I don't necessarily know what Urwerk had in mind, but this is when you are afraid you might be winding it too much. So if you're like, I don't know, playing the drums and moving your wrist around a lot, you would want to reduce the movement. And then full is, well, full. You know, it's an automatic watch and it's not reduced or stopped. This is not the only Urwerk which has this functionality, and again, it's a technique that allows you to further connect with your watch, and that's something that Urwerk is quite good at. But I do agree that there are times when you have to explain to yourself what that's all about, and you want to explain to a friend. There's probably not the best answer in the world. I believe the case back is titanium, coated in black, which contrasts quite nicely with the red gold. It's actually quite uncommon, in my experience, to see an Urwerk watch in a red or a pink gold or a yellow gold or anything like that. Usually Urwerk watches are black colored or in a white gold or something like that, where it's not so obvious it's in a precious metal. So this is one of those rare examples of yes, this is an Urwerk, and yes, it's a precious metal. So that makes this one a little bit unique. You can see it here on the wrist how it wears. No Urwerk watch looks like your standard round watch. Well, some of the very, very, very early Urwerks were round, but after that, every single Urwerk essentially has its own variation on being interesting. Most of them follow this, I'll call it vertically long versus horizontally wide look, though they have exceptions to that as well. And I do think that it fits actually quite well on the wrist. It's comfortable. It's comfortable. Not the thinnest watch by any means, but certainly comfortable. There is, of course, glare, and it has to do with the size and shape of the crystal as well as the curved nature. I mean, this is about as non-standard a crystal shape as you could expect. It's not just not round, but it has these indents and things like that. More AR coating probably could have helped, but I have to say when you wear it, it's not that big of a deal, especially because most of the glare is actually in this vicinity here, whereas you are looking for the most part here when reading the time. Again, this is the Urwerk UR-210. I haven't gone into a lot of the details like the name of the movement and the size. And the reason I mention the size is because it doesn't really have the same effect as perhaps on a round watch. I think the best thing to do is look at it on my wrist, and of course I will mention all those dimensions in the review, but I'm just saying why I haven't specifically said the size. I actually don't remember the specific size right now, but I remember it when I was reviewing. I was like, you know what, it doesn't really matter to tell people. I'm guessing it's probably, I don't know, 42 or 43 millimeters wide. It actually wears a little bit bigger than it is because it is a tall watch, and it's a little asymmetrical too, where just given sort of the shape of the case, the rear section here is just a little bit taller than the section here, but again, it's comfortable. And on this nice padded alligator strap, I find it to be quite comfortable. Not everyone did actually, so I think it depends on the size of your wrist. But for me, this works quite well. The price for this watch is in the vicinity of about $150,000. You can see the full review on aBlogtoWatch. Thanks.